Let's start our session today. Let's pay homage to the Supreme Buddha, first of all. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Peruan Saranai Hemdinatama. Okay, today also we are going to start our next session that we have been discussing on Four Noble Truths. So today that we have to discuss on rest of the aggregates that I think last week that we've discussed about the Rupa Skandha, aggregates of matter. So today that we have to discuss the rest of the four skandhas. Am I right, Mahinda Mahatma? The page that we are going to discuss today, 48.
Okay, Bante.
Yes. I think last time that we discussed about the aggregate of matter, that we finished that discussion. So now let's start the Vedana Skandha, the aggregate of feeling. So let me explain something about feeling before reading the text. So we know that the Vedana, or the feeling, it's a mental factor, Chetasika. I think that we have studied Abhidhamma, so it's not difficult to understand that the Vedana, the feeling, Chetasika is included in the universal Chetasika, Sabba Chitta Sadharana, which means this Chetasika, or the mental factor, arises in all the consciousnesses. That's why it is called Sabba Chitta Sadharana, or universal. But here it is taken as an aggregate. So we are going to discuss why it is separately taken as an aggregate among these 52 Chetasikas. And we know that what is the characteristic of Chetasika of feeling, or Vedana. So we know that Vedana has been divided into two categories. The number one is it is divided as Arammana Vijanana Lakkana, not Arammana Rasanubhana Lakkana, which means according to the enjoying the pleasure of the object. That's what you call Arammana Rasanubhana Lakkana. Or pleasure or the taste. Then there's another method called Indriya Veda. It is divided, it has some 5 steps. It's been divided. For an example, Somanassa Indriya, faculty of mental pleasure, feeling of mental pleasure. Then Domanasindriya, feeling displeasure, the mental displeasure, domanassa. Then feeling neutral, the faculty of feeling neutral, upekkindriya. Then bodily displeasure, dukkhindriya. Then bodily happiness or pleasure, sukhindriya, something like that. It is divided to 5. So somehow this Vedana Skandha is very important to understand among these 5 aggregates. Yes, all the 5 aggregates are very important to understand. But this is also very important. Let's see what the text says about the Vedana Skandha. Anything that can be seen by mind, can be known and grasped by mind, is referred to as aramun, or in plain English, objects of mind. So we know what we come to know through the mind is objects. And the characteristic of the mind is also knowing the object. We know there is no way that mind can appear without object. Always mind appears with object, knowing object. So among aramun or objects, there are objects that give pleasure to the mind, such as masculine and feminine rupas, clothes, houses, chairs and beds, tables, utensils, voices and sounds, tasty food and perfumes. These enrich the mind with pleasure. So these objects have some ability or have some sort of taste. That is what explains here the objects that give pleasure. We know the pleasant objects. When we experience pleasant objects, the people who have not penetrated or who have not realized the noble teachings, they experience pleasure, the feeling of pleasure. Then, on the contrary, there are objects that cause displeasure to the mind. In the object are such as fecal matter, urine, blood, pus, spit, mucus, and so on. So we know these objects, the unpleasant objects, when we experience, we feel displeasure. When we experience pleasant objects, we feel the pleasure. And still, there are some objects that upon contact engender a neutral feeling. The objects such as mountains, shrubs, trees are most likely to cause neutral feeling. So these are the three sort of feelings based on the arammana rasa, the taste of the objects. So some objects, we know the pleasant objects, they have some sort of pleasant taste. When we experience those sort of objects in our minds, arises the pleasant feeling. Then when we experience displeasure or unpleasant objects, we experience displeasure. That's then the neutral feeling. In between these sort of objects, there are some objects that do not have a pleasure or displeasure. That's what you call neutral feeling. To the qualities inherent in mind, objects as pleasure-inducing and digest-inducing are designated. Aramunu, when an object comes within the purview of mind, the qualities eminent in the so-called object by way of pleasure, displeasure, or neutrality is also born with the aramunu. This is termed Vedana. So, the Vedana, what does is generate the feeling. We know that all the chittas have, arise this feeling together. As we discuss about Chetana and the mental factors, all the mental factors arise with the mind and take the same object and cease together and appear the same place where the chitta appear. So This is the explanation that based on the Arammana Rasa, the taste of the objects. This is also included in one of the Chetasikas, mental formations. When such a formation enriches or fills the mind with pleasure, it is known as Sukha Vedana. As I explained earlier, when we experience these pleasant objects, then the Sukha Vedana arises in the mind, where the term Sukha means pleasure. Similarly, when the mind is filled with displeasure or revulsion, it is known as Dukkha Vedana. When the term Dukkha means suffering, and when unaccompanied by either Sukha Vedana or Dukkha Vedana, it is apparelled as Upeksha Vedana, meaning neutrality or neutral effect. All these types of Vedana or feeling in totality is given the epithet, which means by the name Vedana Skandha, the aggregate of feeling. Just as upon contact of the matchstick with the matchbox result in fire, the Vedana arises, conditioned upon the contact of object in sense organs such as ear, eye, ear, etc. Such as it is, the Vedana are also classified based upon the sense through which the particular Vedana comes into apprehension of the mind. So basically here explains about how Vedana arise, mainly according to the objects. According to the pleasant objects arise pleasant feeling. Unpleasant object arise displeasure feeling. Then there are some objects neither pleasant nor unpleasant, which means neutral feeling, neutrality. So all these feelings are collectively known as skandha. Skandha means collection, right? So this is the Vedana skandha, and it's again explained as the sense basis where these chittas appears. So let's see the Pali term, the Buddha on this point goes, Katamancha bhikkhave vedana. Chaimi bhikkhave vedana kaya. Chakku sampassaja vedana. Sota sampassaja vedana. Ghana sampassaja vedana. Jivha sampassaja vedana. Kaya sampassaja vedana. Mano sampassaja vedana. Ayang bucchati bhikkhave vedana. So, due to chakku, the eye, when we contact the forms, the rupas, arises, we know the chakku viññāna. So then, with the chakku viññāna, the vedana also arises. So that's why it is called chakku sampassaja vedana. When we come to know the objects through our eyes and rest of the senses as well, it generates vedana. So we know that when a mind appears, it's not it does not appear with just vedana or the feeling, right? There are rest of other chetasikas, mental factors arise together. But here it is emphasized because the Vedana is prominent. That's why it is separately mentioned here as Vedana Skandha. So, based on... Yes?
If I can ask a question, at the beginning of the page, it says, when an object comes within the purview of the mind, the qualities immanent in the so-called object by way of pleasure, displeasure, and or neutrality is also born with the aramuna. But this seems to indicate the quality of pleasure or displeasure is in the object.
Yes,
But how is it then that the same object viewed by two people can give pleasure to some and displeasure to others?
yes, it based on their views.
So the quality is not in the object, but it is in the person's perception
No,
of the object.
no, but the objects also has some sort of intrinsic natures which gives the aramana or the aramana rasa, I mean. So pleasant objects, yes, it has, they have some sort of ability to give some pleasant feelings. But it differs according to the person. For an example, like if Arahanta sees something, it doesn't matter whether it is pleasurable or unpleasurable, it doesn't affect him. But when it comes to a normal person, those who do not have understand or realize the teachings, the Dhamma, they can be affected by those aramana, since that they have not developed the understanding. So the aramana have some sort of natures or taste. That's what you call aramana rasa. That's why.
Bante, so if we take, say, if you take me and I see a human being, and I am angry with that human being, then I see him in a not in a pleasant way. But the same human being might be a friend to another person. And when that person sees that same human being, that person will have a pleasant feeling.
Yes.
So in that situation, both people are seeing the same human being.
In those situations, yes, you are correct. It depends on how you think about it. But if we say like, let's say like gold,
yeah,
right, money, something like that. And as it mentioned here, like repulsive objects like fecal matter, urine, it has some intrinsic natures, right? So that's what it mentions here. The aramana, the objects have some sort of taste. But as I mentioned earlier, for those who have, penetrated or realized the teachings, doesn't matter whether the pleasant or unpleasant, they can maintain, but yes, but normal people, it's quite difficult to them because they have not practiced that to see the real true natures of the objects. So somehow here it explained as where the chitta appears, like through sense doors. So that's why it is mentioned chaime bhikkhave vedana kaya. So let's see the meaning again. Bhikkhus, what are the feelings? Feelings based on eye, ear, smell, taste, body, and mind. Thus, there are 6 types of feelings. These feelings are respectively in Pali are Chakku Sampassaja Vedana, Soda Sampassaja Vedana, Ghana Sampassaja Vedana, Jivha Sampassaja Vedana, Kaya Sampassaja Vedana, Mano Sampassaja Vedana. So it explains how they appear. Because of eye, the Vedana appear. That's what you call Chakku Sampassaja Vedana. So there was a simile before that we discussed. These Vedana arises due to contact with the objects. There was a simile, just as upon contact of the matchstick with the matchbox resulting fire. So something like that. If drum is beaten, the sound arises. Something like that. So these feelings or the Vedana arises due to contact. Chakku sampassaya vedana, what is meant is the feeling that is engendered as a result of the contact made by the eye with an object. Likewise, it should be known with regard to sota sampassaya vedana, etc. The same way it explains to other sense bases as well. It is vital to remember that Vedana arises in consciousness, in concomitance with the rest of the aggregates. So the 5 aggregates appear all together. If we say a mind, we generally say a chitta appears, mind appears. But it's not just a mind. Mind appears means with all these, the other aggregates also appears. We know that we have discussed that the chetana or the mental factors arise together with the mind. So this Vedana is itself a mental factor, chetana. It is this very Vedana which is considered by the ordinary human being as being constituted of sukha, pleasure, or dukkha, suffering. Among what they deem as sukha, there's nothing that is so highly distinguished as sukha vedana, pleasurable feeling. Therefore, they love sukha vedana more than anything else. On account of sukha vedana being non-spontaneous, and for its acquisition, certain other commodities being required, such as food, money, houses, they secondarily love these objects. If Sukha Vedana were to be spontaneous, people wouldn't love or try to acquire any of these things at all. So it explains how people consider on Sukha Vedana. Simply, not only people, all the living beings do almost everything to gain this Sukha Vedana. In the conflux of their life, people do everything that they are capable of in order to engender in their minds what is known as the Sukha Vedana. On the other hand, it can be affirmed that people do everything in as much as they do everything for Sukha Vedana to avert, eliminate the opposite Dukkha Vedana, or if possible, to eradicate it, which is of course impossible. People fear enemies, diseases, cudgels, hell, and prisons because of their desire to evade and escape suffering. Example, Dukkha Vedana, although Vedana is something banal and commonplace, which means boring, as it is grasped very seriously by ordinary laymen, the Lord Buddha sequestered, which means separately explained it, especially from the Chetasikas, mental formations, and included it in the discourse on the aggregates. So as most of the beings care too much about this Vedana to gain Sukha Vedana and to avoid Dukkha Vedana, they take this Vedana as very seriously. So it explains here, that's why the Buddha explained the Vedana as separately, Vedana as skandha, or aggregate of feeling. So that is about the aggregate of feeling. Is it clear, Mahinda Mahatma, what I have been explaining here? Not much.
I need to study it a bit more, Bhante, because it's the quality of the pleasure and displeasure I always felt it was part of each human being's perception of the object.
Yes, it's also a part, but still the objects also has a sort of taste. It's not totally based on the beings and totally based on the just objects. The both has part of the job. I mean, when they experience the object.
Bante, there is, I remember listening to something where there is this example of some insect or something that lives in some excrement, finding that the excrement is actually pleasurable because that's the environment. But to us humans, it's something that's displeasurable. So in that situation, the excrement itself doesn't have its own quality. It is in the experience of the...
Yeah, it's because as you mentioned, the perception of that being. Yeah, but yeah, it's itself as explained. I mean, those sort of examples in the teachings, for an example, like as you mentioned, those things have their nature. For an example, it's always not pleasant for anybody, but those beings are in these things. They see it as pleasurable, but it's explained in the teachings, in the text. For an example, like pigs eat those
Eat those, yeah. So for them, it's pleasurable, no, Bante?
Pleasurable, but it's still they get that because of their unwholesome behaviors as unwholesome results. They take it is because of their perception, wrong perception. But still the objects has its true nature.
Okay. Thank you, Bante.
It's okay. Gitanjali Mahatmya, anything to explain more?
Not at the moment, Bante.
Okay. Yes, let's move on then. Then the next skandha is Sanya skandha. Sanya skandha also has explained based on the objects like Rupa Sanya, Saddha Sanya, something like that. So let's see how it explains here. Sanya skandha. Of all the concepts herein laid down and admit of translation, this is the hardest. By the word sanya, it is meant recognition, discrimination, or knowing. Herein we come across a stumbling block. The word vijnana or consciousness also means knowing. One should therefore be careful not to muddle up these two words. So here it explains the sanya and vijnana. It's quite confusing, and the translator says it's quite difficult to translate. But when we study this, that we can clarify what sanya does and what vijnana does. In this backdrop, what difference there are between the two words, sanya and vijnana? One might question. This lies in the fact of sanya being non-sensuous or pure, being unaccompanied by any cetasikas or mental formations. The crux of the difference is contained in this very significant point. Sanya is the differentiating factor that distinctly recognizes soil, water, fire, wind, gold, silver, trees, creepers, roots, leaves, crusts, flowers, fruits, eatables, drinks, clothes, houses, voices and other sounds, men and animal, colors, smells, taste, and all things other than these that can be conceived through various qualities present in them. So here the sanya is also a mental factor that we've discussed in Abhidhamma class. We've discussed there are 52 cetasikas. So this sanya is included in the Sabba Chitta Sadharana. So all the chittas, all the chittas, this sanya appears, and what we experience as objects, separately that we can say sanyas, as explained here, like colors, smells, tastes, all these objects that we experience, there we can say they are sanya. As things such as soil, water, fire, wind come under aforesaid gochara rupa. So here, we earlier discussed that the four great elements, Mahabhuta, and again it explains the gochara rupa. Gochara rupa means what we experience through our senses, like the color, the taste, the smell, etc. Sanya is classified in consonance with the 6 gochara rupas. Rupas, form, shabda, sound, gandha, smell, rasa, taste, sparsha, tactile, contact, and dhamma, ideation based on memory and imagination. Buddha on this point said, Katamancha bhikkhave sanya, chaimi bhikkhave sanya kaya. Rupa sanya, saddha sanya, gandha sanya, rasa sanya, pottabba sanya, dhamma sanya, ayang uchchati bhikkhave sanya. Bhikkhus, what is sanya? Bhikkhus, rupa sanya, saddha sanya, gandha sanya, rasa sanya, sparsha sanya, and dhamma sanya. These 6 comprise the mental aggregate of sanya. Bhikkhus know these to be sanya. So what we experience through our senses, they are called sanya. And what does sanya chaitasika is, that sanya chaitasika recognizes the nature of the object to distinguish among all the other objects. So there are 6 types of sanyas. Right? That's why it is classified as what we experience through our senses. Sanya is one of the dharmas, elements in the ultimate sense of its, for it is a cetasika, a mental formation assisting in the recognition of the object of consciousness. Objects recognized by sanya are multifarious. As such, there are millions of types of sanya, as mother recognizing sanya, father recognizing sanya, etc. Collectively, all these varied sanya are termed sanya skandha, meaning group of sanyas, file of sanyas, aggregates of sanyas, we can say. So sanya, the mental factor, helps to recognize the sanyas among all other objects. So all the sanyas has some special nature to be recognized. For an example, like it was mentioned earlier as well. So if there are someone who want to us among some group of other people, that we can recognize him easily. Something like that. Among the things, mind, body aggregates that ordinary person considers as an ego, I, or personality, sanya is one of the most prominent. So when it comes to personality and ego, sanya becomes prominent. For which reason in this world, uneducated who has little of sanya are sneered at, while educated who have a plenitude of sanya are praised in the most eloquent terms. So the people who do not have studied or learned many things, they have limited sort of sanyas. For an example, someone who has ability to speak or write many languages, right? It means that he can recognize so many sanyas, different sanyas. So those who have not studied much, they have limited sanyas. So that's why here it mentions the sanya is a prominent factor to develop the personality or ego. Lot undergo many and inconvenience on account of acquiring more and more sanya, which means to be educated and learn. Furthermore, people waste lot of time and incur lot of experience, lot of expense for the purpose of elevating the faculty of sanya. The purpose of education in the proper sense is to expand the horizons of sanya. If one exalts oneself, suffers inconvenience, exerts tremendous effort for the sake of education, it is, in the actual sense, a subconscious effort aimed at enlarging the boundaries of sanya. It is added by the translator. Some make themselves vain and give them airs as a result of the sanyoic knowledge they possess. I know such and such languages. I am expert at so many sciences. I know these more than he. I can do better than anybody in this field. I got through all these exams. So many a man or and woman grasps onto sanya, manifesting an egoistical hold on the sanyas. Although sanya, like Vedana, is one of the Chetasikas, Lord Buddha isolated it and provided it separately as the one of the mental composites forming the Nama aggregates, for the reason that, as aforesaid, it is taken to be an ego, like forced by samsaric beings. Thus is the Sanyaskanda as exposed in the profound teachings of the Buddha. So it explains how sanya affects a person to develop his ego or the personality. So it says that's why it is separately mentioned as sanya skandha, or aggregate of perceptions by the Supreme Buddha. Anything to clarify about sanya?
Sorry, Bhante. So
Yes.
ego can be recognized as mania?
Yes, mana also arises because of ego.
Mana arises because of, yeah, okay.
I'm such and such, thinking like. So sanya plays a huge role in creating an ego, personality. But yes, if you learn the teachings, someone may say that, or do we still develop the sanya? But when you learn the teachings, we should not forget that we develop the panya as well at the same time. But if you, yes, it can be like influential if you do it, if you think in a wrong way. For an example, if you learn the teachings quite well, that you can still develop sort of ego. Okay, I'm the one who knows these Abhidhamma and deep teachings of the Buddha, something like that. But you have to be careful when you learn the teachings as well, and thinking in correct way. Otherwise, you will develop more ego due to the knowledge of the teachings. And you have to be careful to learn the teachings to reduce the mana, the ego, and all other negative thoughts.
Bhante, here the development of the sanya in the way it's explained here is, it appears to be giving rise to creating the identity of self as well.
Yes. Yes, that's why it is separately explained as sanya skandha. So these two skandhas or aggregates are chetasikas. That we studied 52 chetasikas, mental factors. And when we separate the skandhas or the being into two, like nama rupa, these two chetasikas has been taken separately. It explains as skandhas, aggregates. Okay, now the third aggregate, the sanskara skandha, chetasikas or mental formations. By sanskara, it is the motive or intention with which an action is done that is understood. Herein, intention could be taken synonymously with motive. The Pali term for motive or intention is termed chetana. Thus, the sanskara skandha is that group of mental elements, dharma, which help generate and sustain the five aggregates, which based on chetana, aiding to perform such actions of humans like eating, drinking, bathing, sitting, walking, and sleeping. So here, the mental formations, the sanskara, in this aggregate, the main element is the chetana that we've discussed, that we've learned among the chetasikas. It is also Sabbha Chitta Sadharana Chaitasika, or universal for all the consciousnesses. It appears with all the consciousnesses. So here, the chetana, without chetana, you can't do anything. All the activities based on the chetana. We learn, when we learn about karma, we know the chetana is the deciding factor, the main factor of karma as well. So here the chetana, the sanskara skandha, the chetana is prominent. Actions, body, speech, and mind are brought about by chetana with the support of the mind and other subsidiary chetasikas. Therefore, every human actions has chetana as its forerunner, as its chief. Chetana alone, without the assistance of consciousness or mind and other subordinate chetasikas, can perform no action. Therefore, the presence of other chetasikas are essential for the chetana to be fructified in an action, kriya. Since these subordinate chetasikas act concurrently with chetana, they too are sanskaras, forerunners of actions. However, as consciousness, chitta, vedana, and sanya are taken to be three distinguished mental aggregates, they are not called sanskaras. 50 chetasikas, including chetana, are called sanskara or mental formations. So we know that there are 52 mental states, right? So except Vedana and Sanya, rest of the 50 mental factors fall into this aggregate of sanskara skandha. But the main factor here is the chetana. Without chetana, you can't do anything. But at the same time, without the help of the mental factors as well, the chetana can't be, or I mean, the action can't be fulfilled. As we've discussed earlier, the consciousness, these 52 chetasikas, arise together, right? So all these chitta and the mental factors, they have separate duties to perform to fulfill an action of knowing an object, right? So without any of the, yes, it differs according to the chitta. For an example, if there is unwholesome chitta, we've discussed there are some unwholesome mental factors, 14 unwholesome mental factors that we've discussed. They appear in the unwholesome chittas with the universals and some of the other prakirnaka chetasikas. Like that, it differs. So the wholesome chitta, in the wholesome chittas, there is no unwholesome mental factors. Something like that, it differs. But what I want to teach you here, to fulfill an action, there should be some certain mental factors with the chetana. So all these, the 50 rest of the mental factors based on the chetana are collectively called or known as sanskara skandha, or aggregate of mental formations.
Srebante, so this word sanskara is also written as sankhara, right? Sometimes.
Yeah, here, yeah, we have to distinguish this sanskar or sankhara because it is explained in several places based on the context. For an example, we here discuss sanskara skandha. In somewhere we discuss like sabbe sankhara anicca. Then there's a place in the paticca samuppada as well. Avijja paccaya sankhara. Yeah, so
is the meaning different, Bante?
Yes, the meanings differ according to the context. So here we discuss the 50 chetasikas with the chetana. They are called sanskara skandha here. When it comes to paticca samuppada, avijja paccaya sankhara, dependent on ignorance of Four Noble Truths, it's explained as activities arise. Sanskara. The activities means the unwholesome activities, wholesome activities, these two. So in further, if we discuss that, we can say the unwholesome chitta chittas and wholesome chittas.
So it's leading to the same place, no one thing.
Yes, we can come into the
So
yes, the ultimate realities in Abhidhamma, all these that we can come to. If we say more technically, that we can say they are in avidya paccaya sankhara, the chetana. Because chetana is a karma. Yeah, more technically speaking, but we can talk in that way, like unwholesome chittas, wholesome chittas. They are the ones that make the rebirth. In that
rise to the karma.
Karma is in that
condition.
Yeah, in that context, Paticcasamuppada context. Because we call Sankara Paccaya Vijnana. Vijnana means rebirth.
Yeah.
So the wholesome and unwholesome activities are the things that make the rebirth. So when it comes to Sabbe Sankhara Anicca, here Sankhara means all the conditioned things. All the things that arise based on the conditions. So we can say Panchaskandha, all the Panchaskandha is that we can say Sankhara. And all the things, living beings and animate, inanimate, everything is Sankhara. In that way, in that method, Sabbe Sankhara Anicca method. So is it clear?
So, yeah, it is clear, but I was just thinking further. So mental formations, our whole perception of the world is through mental formations. So in that context, the word Sankara it seems to be consistent in its use.
Well, as we discussed earlier, all the 5 aggregates work together. When we come to know something or do something, these work together. But each of the ultimate realities has its own activities, own nature, as we discussed. The sanya does its job, the vedana does its job, then the chetana and the rest of other chetasikas do their jobs. All together.
Yeah.
And consciousness also
comes.
Yes, comes together. So now you see the importance of studying Abhidhamma here. You can accurately, divide all the factors that we've learned into these baskets. The sankhara, the vedana, the consciousness, and all these things that we can clearly categorize into the to be understood easily. Among the actions, deeds affected by Chetana-based Chetasikas are part is done for here and part for hereafter. Actions such as eating, drinking, staying, sitting, sleeping, going, dressing, supplying food and money are actuated towards the sustenance of the present 5 aggregates of the world. Among these actions, eating and maintenance of stands, etc. are performed for Rupa Skandha, while consumption of tasty food, sporting, enjoying dances are for the Vedana Skandha. Learning to read, etc. are for Sanya Skandha, while actions discharged with the view of developing faith, wisdom, and effort are for Sankhara and Vijnana, consciousness and Chitta. At times, eating, drinking, and most of all other actions are executed for the maintenance of 5 aggregates. Deeds such as liberality, observance of sila, sil, actuated with an eye to augmenting feature status are for the 5 aggregates to be gotten in the future. As execution of each of the aforesaid actions is proceeded from Chetana, the Lord Buddha, in places of sutras, discourses where the 5 aggregates are explained in concise terms, as mentioned, that the Chetana itself is a sanskara skandha. Chetana too is sixfold, just as much as Vedana and Sanya are. Thus the Buddha has said. So here the Chetana itself is sanskara skandha. We know that the Chetana is the karma that when we come to the sutras, we call the Chetana. Chetanaham bhikkhave kammang vadami. So in that sense, it is explained here as skandha, but still, we know that the Chetana just does not appear alone. It appears with all other Chetasikas. But in the sutras, in the discourses, it always discusses about the prominent factor. But according to the Abhidhamma, the rest of the Chetasikas and all these other things also that we have to consider. So here it explains what are the beings or the humans or any other beings do things just for the 5 aggregates. It's separately explained here as I read this text. So here there is a nice explanation. You see, deeds such as liberality, observances of seal, actuated with an eye to augmenting future states of for the 5 aggregates to be gotten in the future. Since we do all the things for the maintenance of the 5 aggregates, it's explained here sometimes when people do some wholesome things, expecting to be born in heavenly places. It's also doing things to gain the 5 aggregates. So as we discussed earlier, the Chetana is also sixfold. We've discussed the Vedana as sixfold, the Sanya sixfold, Vedana Sanya. Then Sankhara is also 6 times. Katamancha bhikkhave Sankhara. Chaimi bhikkhave Chetana Kaya. Rupa Sanchetana, Saddha Sanchetana, Gandha Sanchetana, Rasa Sanchetana, Pottabba Sanchetana, Dhamma Sanchetana. Ime Uchanti bhikkhave Samkhara. Because what are sanskaras? Because Rupa Sanchetana, Rupa Chetana, Saddha Chetana, etc., Dhamma Chetana. Because these are termed sanskaras. Herein, sanskara skandha divided or categorized into 6 in accordance with the rupas through which manifest as it is. Moreover, it is again categorized into 3 according to whether it is chetana, it is meritorious, demeritorious, or neutral. Kusala, akusala, and avyakata. Yes. The Chetana is, according to this explanation, is threefold Chetana or the Sanskara Skandha. So the Kusala, Akusala, and Avyakata are the 3 Sinhalese terms respective for these 3 divisions. When the Chetana is meritorious, such as when it is compassionate, sympathetic, faithful, and sagacious, it is given the epithet Kusala, while it is demeritorious, such as when it is fraught with lobha, filled with lobha, dosa, and moha, it is called by the term Akusala. When it is neither meritorious nor demeritorious, it is said to be neutral, avyakata. Chetana is supported and aided by 49 subordinate chetasikas. Geethanona, did you try to ask something?
No, Bhante. No, that.
Yes. So we've discussed now that we can understand what are the kusala, right? Wholesome, as we discussed by the number of chittas, right? And akusala as well. Akusala chetas, akusala consciousness 12. Then avyakata, neither wholesome nor unwholesome. They are called the resultants, vipaka, and just the functionals like kriya and vipaka, they are called avyakata. So all these the categorize all these that we can put into the category of sanskara skandha. So the Tejana, though we discuss the Chetana as the karma, Chetana bhikkhave kammang vadami, but it's not that we can't put it in all the places. For an example, like this here explained, like avyakata, right? There is also the Chetana, but it does not create any karma, though Chetana appears there. So the Chetana is supported and aided by 49 subordinate Chetasikas, except Vedana and Sanya. Yes. So all the other rest of the Chetasikas, they have different functions, right? It should be known that there are 10 Chetasikas amidst the 49 that are sometimes meritorious, again demeritorious, and yet again neutral. The first 13 that we've discussed, Anya Samana Chetasika. And I can't remember the exact English term for that. Yes, Anya Samana Chetasika. Chetasika means 49 that are sometimes meritorious, again demeritorious, and yet again neutral. Furthermore, there are 14 Chetasikas that are always demeritorious. So also there are 25 Chetasikas that are sometimes meritorious, and certain other times, depending on condition under which the mind arises, neutral. Which means then Arahantas, when Arahantas do some like wholesome activities in their mind, these wholesome Chetasikas appears. But at that time we call they are just functions, the Kriya. All these Chetasikas together with Chetana form 50 Chetasikas that comprise in totality the Sanskara Skandha. So including Chetana, rest of the 49 Chetasikas are called Sanskara Skandha, or aggregate of volition or mental formations. Anything to be clarified, Mahinda Mahatma, about this, the Sanskara Skandha? Gita Mahatma? If not,
It's
we
okay,
can, then we can move on to the Vijnana Skandha. So Vijnana Skandha now you can understand how many vinyanas that we've discussed in Abhidhamma. We've discussed 89 chittas in shortened form and 121 in longer version.
Yeah.
Yes. So let's see Vijnana Skandha. You have come across the term Vijnana in the elaboration of previous concepts. Vijnana is an alternative name for mind, or what in Pali is known as Chitta. So the Vijnana, or the consciousness, or the Chitta, there are a number of names. Even though there are many names, the ultimate reality, in the ultimate sense, all the names are called just for the Chitta, mind. According to it appears, or the context, there are separate names have been given, but in ultimate reality, all those names are called to the Chitta. Vijnana is Katamancha bhikkhave vijnana. Chaime bhikkhave vijnana kaya. Chakku vijnanam. Sota vijnanam. Ghana vijnanam, jivha vijnanam, kaya vijnanam. Mano vijnanam. Ayam uchchati bhikkhave vijnanam. Most often the term consciousness is used as the English equivalent of vijnana. By vijnana skandha is understood the collective consciousness. Infinite in number, that had ceased. Its meaning is group of consciousnesses or vijnanas. Consciousnesses are generated at 6 doors of sense when an object manifests in their purview. Therefore, vijnanas are categorized in agreement with the sense door through which the object is arrested. Thus, there are 6 vijnanas, as the Buddha has pointed out. So here again, the vijnana is also sixfold, as we discussed earlier. Chakku vijnana, right, which means that the vijnana appears in the eye. That's what we call chakku vijnana. And now we can clarify that we learn 89 consciousnesses. So then the 10 we call Vipancha Vijnana, right? They appear on eye and ear, nose, tongue, and body. Then there are other 4 consciousnesses where the beings appear in the formless realm. There are 4. So except these 14 chittas, rest of the 75 appears in the as mano vijnana in heart base. Yes. So more often the term its meaning is a group of consciousness or vijnanas. Consciousnesses are generated at 6 doors of sense when an object manifests in their purview. Yes, when the object come into the purview or range of our senses, these vijnanas appears. It's as like we've discussed there's a simile as a matchstick contacts with the matchbox, the fire arises. Something like that. These vijnanas arise due to conditions. Therefore, vijnanas are categorized in agreement with the sense door through which the object is arrested. Thus, there are 6 vijnanas, as the Buddha has pointed out, as we discussed above. When an object presents itself before the eye, a consciousness arises. That consciousness, or rather, cognizes the object. This consciousness or vijnana is termed eye consciousness. The ordinary lay people call this vision, in spite of fact that it is the mind or the consciousness that is actually there and should be de facto referred to. What happens in reality. So even though chitta appears or a vijnana appears, the lay people, they just don't say vijnana appears, they say I see or something like that. That's what it explains there. When a sound comes into collision with the air, the consciousness arises, ear consciousness, to which ordinary lay people refer to as hearing. So, yes, ear consciousness, the people take them as like Atma, I hear or something like that. That's what I explained. Similarly, when a smell comes into the contact with the nose, consciousness arises, that is labeled smell consciousness. When a taste crouches on the surface of the tongue, it gives rise to a consciousness, to wit, taste consciousness, jivha vijnana. Ordinary lay people call these respectively smelling and tasting. When something touches the body, it arouses kaya vijnana, which according to the terminology of the ordinary lay people manifests as pain, burning, titillating, scratching, and soothing. All but the forms of the aforementioned consciousness are called mano vijnana. What ordinary lay people call mind is this very mano vijnana. Thus, what to the world is known as vision, hearing, pain, soothing, pleasure are in the ultimate sense is vijnana skandha. Vijnana, like sanya, is also divided into meritorious, kusala, demeritorious, akusala, and neutral avyakata. Here, like not like sanya, like should be chetana, I think. These should be understood exactly in the manner as they were considered under the sanskara skandha. So I think there is some printing mistake. Vijnana like chetana. So the end of the exposition of Panchaskandhas has been reached. The Lord Buddha has compared Rupa Skandha to a bunch of spume, form, Vedana Skandha to a bubble of water, Sanya Skandha to a mirage, Sanskara Skandha to a plant and trunk, and Vijnana Skandha to an act of magic or an illusion. So we know the Vijnana Skandha or the Vijnana, the categorizations of Vijnana like Akusala, right? Akusala Vijnana, or then the meritorious, the Kusala, demeritorious Akusala, and neutral Avyakruta. So it explains like ordinary people, when the consciousness appear, how they call that's what ordinary lay people call mind is this very mano vijnana. And this, the stanza, it's very important to understand that the Panchaskandha has been reached. The Lord Buddha has compared Rupa Skandha to bunch of spume forms. So Rupa, as we discussed earlier, the 28 Rupas, we discuss it, the Rupas has the 17 Chittakkana, the longevity. So, but in the Rupa Skandha, or whatever we see, we take them as like things. But in reality, they're like, as explained here, like spume or a form. They always in motion, appearing and disappearing nature. Then compare Rupa Skandha, bunch of Vedana Skandha to a bubble of water. It's also same. Bubble of water means it does not prevail for some time. It just appear and just disappear. The sanskar skandha to a mirage. That we learn the sanskar skandha based on chetana and rest of the chetasikas. What manifest by those as things, even though there are no things, but still they manifest as things that they are actually
Yes.
sustaining. It's like plant and trunk. In the plant and trunk, there's no something important if we peel it out. And Vijnana Skandha to an act of magic or an illusion. So it explained earlier that when we see something, it appears the Chakku Vijnana, and we only see the color, right? But as it explains here, like magic or illusion, we take them as humans, male, female, beautiful or ugly, right? That's what does by this, the Vijnana. It's like magic or illusion. But especially here, we have to remember these are about the unwholesome chittas, mainly. Because if we take the Lokuttara chittas, they're not like that. They experience the true, the ultimate realities, like nirvana. But here, mainly it focuses on, I think, the unwholesome chittas. So you have to study these again and again to understand this. What I do is just read and try to explain as I could. I think it's beneficial since you have studied some Abhidhamma.
Avasarai Bhante,
Yes?
I have a question now.
Yeah.
Vijnana Skandha is 89 chittas.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
So-
here, skandha means not all the 89 collectively, that when it comes to a person, that the chittas arise before and arising now, all these are called skandha. Since one skandha, one vijnana or consciousness appear at this one time.
Yes.
But when we see the bigger picture, there are so many chittas appears in the past and even in the future, and varieties of as well.
So the Lokottara chittas don't fall into this Vijnana Skandha, Bhante?
There's a categorization, I mean, we call Upadana skandha and skandha. Yes, still that we can include these, but there's some classification on this Lokottara Chitta according to the Upadana, the clinging nature.
Yeah. But Lokottara Chittas will not have the Upadana, isn't it? It is only the Laukika Chittas that will cling
There's
to the clinging.
misconception on this Upadana, clinging nature and non-clinging nature, Upadana Skandha and just Skandha. According to the explanation that Upadana Skandha means that something that we can contact through lobha and ditti. I don't know how to explain that more. That when we contact something through with the lobha and ditti, that is what you call upadana skandha. So when we contact something with the lobha and ditti, that is upadana skandha. So the lokottara chittas cannot be contacted, cannot be known through or with the lobha and ditti.
Ditti.
Yes, the lokottara dhammas.
Yeah.
But worldly or the laukika dhammas can be contacted with the lobha and ditti. For example, like arahanta or even the Buddha, right? That we can or someone can contact the Buddha's rupa skandha with the lobha and ditti. Right? So in that sense that we can say the Buddha also has that rupa upadana skandha. But it doesn't mean that the Buddha take them as the upadana skandha or something. Or even arahantas. They have the upadana skandhas, but it doesn't mean they take them as upadana skandha. But someone can take, not by himself, but outside someone that can take arahanta, the rupa, or even sometimes it explains here like feelings. Someone can contact their feelings with the lobha and ditti. So if something that can be contacted with the lobha and ditti, that's what you call the upadana skandha. So the arahantas, they are the only that cannot be contacted with the lobha and ditti is the lokottara dhammas, the 8 lokottara chittas and the chetasikas which appear together with the consciousness. Those are the things that cannot be contacted with the lobha and ditti. So they are not upadana skandhas.
So Bhante, every time lobha arises, it does not mean that you have clinging, right? You can, isn't it the upadana is where the karma is formed, but it's not that every time there is some lobha element, it becomes upadana, is it?
I didn't get that quite correct.
So whenever a thought, a consciousness comes with, say, lobha as the root, does it mean that you have already, it is clinging, or is it just the nature of that? Yes. But it is, if you progress it to clinging, that it becomes
it's
karma.
It's different thing if you progress to clinging or not. But I'm talking about the nature that you can, I mean, something to subject for clinging. Right?
Okay.
So the arahantas, what we can't take or grasp by clinging is the lokottara dhammas. Right? Chittas and chaitasikas which appear in the lokottara chittas. Yes. That we can't or nobody can take them as upadana skandha. can't contact with the lobha and ditthi. So they are not upadana skandhas. But some other chittas, the normal chittas that we discussed, chittas or rupa, that they can be contacted with the lobha and ditthi. For an example, that I can see an arahanta and contact with his appearance with the lobha and ditthi. There are stories as well. So their rupa is upadana skandha. But it doesn't mean they take them as...
yeah, that is clear.
That is clear, yeah.
But someone can do it. Right? Those are the things that are called upadana skandha, can be contacted with the lobha and ditthi. They are upadana skandhas. But if something that we cannot contact with the lobha and ditthi, they are not upadana skandhas. They are only the lokottara dhammas. Lokottara dhammas, the things only cannot be contacted with the lobha and ditthi. Yes. So it's quite difficult to understand how that the chittas can contact with the lobha and ditthi or with any other thoughts. But still in the text, it explains that we can contact someone's the chittas or the feelings or something like that. When we see someone is suffering, it says that we contact sort of their feelings. When someone is in happy mood, it says we contact their happy feeling, the Vedana. Though it's quite difficult to fathom how we can contact someone's feeling, though we can't see them, but it says that you can contact their feelings. The nama rupa, simply, we can contact rupa, yes, it's no need to explanation, but still you can contact some others, nama dharmas, psychological, these formations. But that the upadana skandha and upadana skandha is always there's a misinterpretation. So did you get what I'm trying to explain about upadana skandha and skandha?
But upadana skandha is always, it's about the clinging, isn't it?
Yes. Something that can be subjected to clinging.
Subjected to clinging.
That can be subjected to clinging, not necessarily always.
Yes.
So we know the Arahantas, they don't take anything as upadana.
Anything as upadana,
yes.
But somebody can do it.
Yeah, to some extent, they may be able to avoid the upadana.
They means?
This is someone who's not a stream mentor also.
Yes.
May be developed to some extent.
Of course, yes. Those who have known the Dhamma and who
Dhamma,
to a certain extent,
and
but in worldly nature, yes, but in the worldly nature, it's quite impossible to always.
No, not always, but it is that upadana that one has to watch out for, because that's the force that the clinging is what continues the tanha, right? Power.
Yes. That's what about the 5 aggregates. So we just discuss on surface level, I would say. Right. And so read these, and you can read the Sinhalese script as well to understand more. But in some English terms, when you study some English terms, it helps you to clarify more, even Sinhalese and Pali terms, I guess.
I have one more question.
Sure.
there was about the Kaya Vinyana, it said when something touches the body, it arouses Kaya Vinyana. Now, that Kaya Vinyana has to be part of the 89 Vinyana Skandha.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, but we discuss the resultant, rootless resultant chittas, ahetuka.
Yes.
There are two kaya vinyanas, the unwholesome resultant kaya vinyana, then rootless wholesome kaya vinyana.
Okay, root Kaya Vinyana, right. Okay.
Ahetuka, yes.
Yeah. It's very hard to relate to.
No, it's not
Which
hard.
one?
I mean, when you remember, if you remember that you can take them and put into the place. For an example, these kaya vinyanas. When you remember 10 vinyanas, right?
10 Vinyanas, yeah.
They are in the rootless chittas, ahetuka chittas. There are 10.
Ahetuka, yeah. Ahetuka Kusala Vipaka and Ahetuka Akusala Vipaka.
Yes. Those, the kaya vinyanas are here that we discuss about.
Okay, so that's 15 of them.
Sorry?
Is it not 15 of them, Bhante? Because there is
Yes.
Akusala Vipaka,
Yes.
Ahetuka.
There are 15.
Yes.
There are two kaya vinyanas.
Two Kaya Vinyanas. Yes, yes.
But based on senses, there are 10 that we easily remember, like Dipancha Vinyana.
Yeah.
Like 2 on eye consciousness, 2 ear consciousness.
Yes.
8 of the senses.
Yes.
Yes.
As a wholesome and unwholesome.
Yes.
Yes, yeah, right.
So when you take them, you can clarify more what here is discussed about. Here, this book is based on purely Abhidhamma, not mainly Sutra. That's why it's discussed about Chetasikas and Vinyana. Yes, so when you remember them, you can relate quite easily.
Yes.
So it approaches the Four Noble Truths from a different angle.
Different angle, and I think it explained that the Four Noble Truths is but nothing but the ultimate realities that we learn in Abhidhamma.
Yeah. Understanding the Four Noble Truths without the Abhidhamma is a way to, I felt, it helps to in your day-to-day living, because life is experienced through the
partially that we can
conventional reality, right?
Like partially.
Yeah.
But when you study Abhidhamma, you can grasp, I mean, the fullest.
The ultimate reality.
Yes. But in sutras, yes, someone can understand from some certain extent, but when you learn the Abhidhamma, that you can take the whole picture, what the suffering is. Like, okay, then that we can wind up today. Yes, so today that we discuss about the aggregates, and we've generated so many wholesome thoughts, meritorious thoughts in our hearts. So let's transfer these merits to departed ones. May all our relatives who have passed away accept these merits and be well, happy and prosperous. Idammi ñātinang hotu sukhitā hontu ñātayo. Idammi ñātinang hotu sukhitā hontu ñātayo. Idammi ñātinang hotu sukhitā hontu ñātayo. Let's share the merits to the divine beings as well. Itthavata cha amhehi sambhatam punya sampadam Sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya itthavatacha amhehi sambhatang punya sampadang. Sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya itthavatacha amhehi sambhatang punya sampadang. Sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. May all these meritorious deeds, meritorious energies that we accumulated today, lead us to supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.